Netflix's flagship drama, The Crown, returned late last year for a third season with a brand new cast exploring key events in the royal family's life over the 60s and 70s. I'm Rob Licuria, Senior Editor at Gold Derby. I'm here with composer Martin Phipps. Martin, you succeeded Rupert Gregson-Williams and Lorne Balfe as composer on this show. How did that come about that you succeeded them?
Well, the whole show was you'd almost say like a reboot with a new cast and a whole new approach from top to bottom. And they wanted to do that with the music very much. When I was approached by Peter Morgan, the showrunner, creator, writer, he was very clear that he wanted a shift of change of direction with the music, and felt that maybe we could be more intimate, maybe we could find a way of getting into our characters a little bit more, not in any way taking away from what Lorne and Rupert did, because they're fantastic score, and I have to say, I couldn't say no, when I was approached by the band, because I absolutely love it, and I think it's one of the best things on TV. But it was quite a big ask trying to follow in their footsteps. It was daunting approaching that stuff. But what was reassuring was it was always like, we want to do this different. We like what you do, and we want to try something else.
Yeah, I think obviously when you're taking over from somebody else, there's always going to be a bit of trepidation about how you're going to make it your own and how you're also going to keep the consistency so it's not a completely different show. So I have some ideas about how the score is different, but I'd like to hear obviously from you what were the main changes that you employed to make it your own?
Yeah. Well, very simply, and I think the most obvious thing, we use less music. And I think when the music comes, when it does finally arrive, we want to notice it more. And I think what happened in the first two seasons was there was a lot of music, and it bubbled away with incredible energy and colour underneath the action, but seldom sort of surfaced beyond that. And that's what we were really trying to do, was use the music in perhaps a slightly more filmic way of that when it arrives, you really notice it, and it's a real event. So, and to do that, I think we wanted to be more subtle. We wanted to allow our audience to really kind of have a chance to lean in and think, what's this happening now? Where are we going with this? Where's this score taking us? And rather than sort of be a reassuring thing, it was actually another layer, a little questioning over the action that's going on.
I'm so glad you said that, because obviously I think, I'm going to say something and I'm going to sound really stupid, but when I listen to the score, firstly, if I listen to it without watching the show and also watching the show, I felt like it had a sense of urgency to it, and also a pensiveness. There's a lot of nuanced propulsive sounds with really lush orchestral melodies underneath it. You know what I mean? And I'm just wondering, what were you trying to aim for with those particular sounds?
Well, that stuff was probably the biggest hangover from the first two seasons. Peter always wanted it to be a very his catchword was suppressed power. That's what he wanted to feel, and that was particularly the watchword for the first two seasons. So that there was this, even though we had this kind of quite intimate relationship with these characters, underneath you felt these forces at work in shaping the world that these characters come from, and that we wanted to carry on, but we wanted to strip that back a bit and make it feel quite elemental in the music, and then take that on to finding a way to burrow into our characters and really capture the mood that they're feeling at this time and this place in history, and these very these significant people for their time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Although, you're right. There is a lot of that sound in the first two seasons. I just felt it more pronounced in season 3. I also felt like there's some beautiful, deep, rich bass sounds. For a good example would be Black Widow. It's actually on the soundtrack that's coming out.
Yeah.
That's a great track where it feels ominous and pensive again. Like it was very appropriate for where the royals were in this particular period.
Yeah. That's exactly right. There was one reviewer. I got a review saying that I'd captured the sigh and retreat of these aging characters in their time in these sort of post-war years, and I think these are people coming to terms with the kind of lost colonial power. They're aging themselves, and Britain in its standing in the world is being it's quite severely diminished. They're all coming to terms with that, while there's a new generation coming through. But even that new generation is very sort of tarnished, or very, quite tainted by this sort of post-war depression of the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, and then another example I immediately think about is the Aberfan score parts.
Right.
The elements it use are very choral. It even felt religious to me. Yeah. What were you trying to do for that episode?
Right, well, that was a really interesting one, because I love using voices, as you mentioned in the Black Widow track, and that was what I was trying to do there. I recorded a choir. I recorded actually a sort of traditional Welsh hymn, or sort of chords from a Welsh hymn with a choir, and then I slowed it right down. I stretched it right out, elongated it, sort of almost beyond recognition. So it was this kind of ghostly, moving male voice choir. So there were moments there where there's a scene where when Prince Philip is at the funeral and he doesn't know what to do with himself. He's kind of he's feeling very emotional, and yet he's not used to feeling emotion. And the singing starts and sort of spreads to thousands of people around these coffins of these kids, and they take the singing out and they just bring in this sort of ghostly, moving elongated chords that I've done, and I think it's really effective. It's like kind of Voices of the Valley of the lost, all the miners and kids and generations of people in this community.
Yeah, look, I think you could that could even be repurposed in some kind of eerie thriller or horror movie. It was actually quite unnerving, which I love when he does that, right?
Right. Well, I love the idea that you're noticing the sort of almost genre references and trying to do things again that you wouldn't necessarily think you're going to have in a British royal family period drama.
Right.
And that was always my brief: was don't be adventurous, and I don't. Again, Peter Morgan always said he never wanted to feel like it was a BBC Sunday night drama. That was not in any respect, and I think it's. And often people say that they don't feel like it's a period drama at all, which is great. That's great done then for us.
Yeah, I love that. I love it how also that you employ a lot of cinematic, larger than life cinematic sounds. There's some great highlights like the Silver Jubilee and the Joys of Margaret in the US. I think the second episode. Do you have a highlight when you think back of season 3 like that? Is something that you're really, really proud of?
I do. There are several. I mean, the Aberfan, as you mentioned, I absolutely love that scene where, and it was a real challenge for me to score, because that was it's the moment where the Queen finally is sort of coerced into visiting the site, the site of the tragedy, and she is very scared that she won't feel the emotion she's meant to feel. So I'm having to make the audience watch and feel emotion for someone who isn't feeling emotion in this sort of scene where she walks around this disaster site. And that was a real challenge. And that, for me, was one of my favorites. We used the French horn in this sort of very simple motif, and that I think that's really effective. One of my other favorite ones, particular favorite, which not sure many people have noticed, but there's a scene in episode 5, which is about Mountbatten, a coup against the British establishment. And the Queen is out in America with her racing manager, and who she would be having an affair with if she could, and is having a lovely time. She's feeling she's quite sort of flirty and having just feeling this is the life she wants to lead. And then in the middle of a dinner, she gets a call from Mountbatten saying, from Wilson saying Mountbatten's doing this coup, and it just breaks her mood. And there's this scene where she walks back up through a restaurant. It's got a long shot of her walking back up through a restaurant. And there's nothing happening. It's just a woman walking through a restaurant. And I'm scoring this underneath with one of my favorite tunes in it that I've done, and it's just a great moment. It's that lovely thing, and there's so much going on in her face, there's so much happening, and yet all she's doing is walking to a restaurant. And I think it's a really good filmic moment.
It absolutely is, and it just goes to show how a moment that you may not necessarily think is so dramatic, music can really add that extra layer,
Right.
which leads into this. This is the dilemma I think that a lot of composers may have. You have struck a balance between invasive versus subliminal, and does that occur to you much in your work?
So it's a constant balance. It's a constant balance about trying to be adventurous and trying to say something a little different, but also not overwhelm the drama or be out of place. What I always want to try and do is, and this is the beauty of The Crown, is often you could take music off all the episodes and it'd still be really watchable, and the scenes would work, and you get characters, and that's how most film and TV drama should be. They shouldn't need music to make them work, but it's not usually the case. So the beauty of that is that I can then come along and go and add another layer to these characters. I can tap into something else that's going on that we might not necessarily have noticed without the music, and that's a real pleasure to do.
Yeah, and absolutely. I can imagine it would be. Do you have any particular thematic melodies or cues that you use for particular characters, or do you mix it up a lot on the show?
We do mix it up. The characters do have their tunes. It sort of cross-fertilizes a lot. Like there's one that I use for Margaret, which is a really simple, almost kind of John Barry-esque, very simple piano and high string number, but it's actually called Sisters, and it's all about Margaret's relationship with her sister, and the fact that she doesn't feel like she has a role, and she's purposeless in life, and she really would love to, she'd be great at being the queen, probably, or certainly a lot more fun, and yet she never will be, and that's just how it is. So it's that kind of, it's about their relationship rather than one specific character.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Charles has a kind of simple, quite mournful, just very, very placed repeated string chords with his clarinet tune over the top, which somehow suits his rather pensive, rather sort of doleful character, which his character gets a little more vicious as we move into season 4, though. So.
Oh, I can't wait. Well, you know what? Let's just cut to the chase, because I think you should just tell us everything about season 4, and hopefully, look, maybe not because you'll get fired, but what can we say about season 4? Because it's highly anticipated because of what we expect is going to be in season 4.
Yeah, well, right. The story, so people, it's no surprise. Someone called Princess Diana turns up, and absolutely fantastic first meeting between Princess Diana and Charles. I can't say anything more than that, but that's a great scene. And then Margaret Thatcher, the phenomenon that is her, whether you love her or hate her, she is an amazing force that arrived, and Gillian Anderson plays her. It's just brilliant. And some amazing scenes between the two middle-aged women, the Queen and her, battling it out. And the tension between them is fantastic, really, really electric.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be much better than watching Gillian Anderson and Olivia Colman in a room. It's going to be amazing.
They really thrash out some very fundamentals of art. The Crown really goes deep. It's really big ideas of our age. They're really trying to bash out, and that's great to watch. That's
brilliant. I want to touch on something that you said earlier before we wrap up, and it's about how you use strings. And I admit I ask this question a lot when I speak to composers because it's my favourite element of film scoring and TV scoring. Why do you think strings are so evocative, and why, in terms of how they elicit emotion? Why is that?
isn't it? Isn't it interesting? I mean, maybe it's literally that this string is pulled tight and has tension to it, and yet an emotion. I don't know. And it's also the collective thing. You get a large number of people playing in a room all together. That immediately has a sort of emotion to it. That has a force to it. But interestingly, Rob, I really try not to use strings. I love them, but it's one of those things of like, the more it's very easy just to lather them all over the place and have them return. And every time you want emotion, you bring in strings, and you'll hear it all the time. And in dramas, as soon as there's an emotional beat, in come the strings. And it's really effective. But I really try not to do that, or to do it in places where you're not quite expecting it. And when I do use them, I try and use them very very sparingly. I always get that word the wrong way around. Can get away with, because again, the less you use, the more effective they are, I feel. As around.
That makes sense, because I don't think this score utilizes a lot of strings, but it's definitely there, and it punctuates a certain, I think, theme or mood that you're going for. But I tell you what,
there's a kind of, I've got a little theme that I love to do, which is just this very high string, sort of little slide, almost like a sigh, like this little descending motif on the high strings. And that's, again, it's very sparse, it's very minimal, it just punctuates certain moments. You get it in the relationship between Prince Philip and Princess Alice.
Exactly.
And it starts that scene I was talking about with the Queen walking through the restaurant, which is sort of realization that she's not going to have the life that she really, she can never really have that life. And that's, and that's all it is really. There's almost nothing else going on string wise, but you really notice it because it's so present. It's so in its own space.
Yeah, I don't want to put anybody down who loves using strings, but I always think like when an emotional part comes in a series, I can imagine the composer saying, "Cue the cello and let's get some violin in there."
More violins.
I'm a sucker for that. Total sucker.
Okay. I did a score called The Aftermath, which a little film where lots of strings on that. Yeah, you'd love that.
I'll check it out. Will you probably submit Abathon for your episode for the Emmys? Is that what you're...
Yeah. I think it's the one that resonated most with people, and it's also nice for me. It's got very little. It doesn't feature. They often feature tracks in The Crown really well. Obviously the puppet and stuff and the time, and it's got the least of those, and it really allows the score to sort of have its own voice throughout, I think. So
it is it's the most standalone of all the elements of the score, and so I didn't even ask you. I was like, "You're going to submit Abathon, aren't you?" Like, Final question before we let you go is, why do you think this show has resonated so much? People love it. We all know the royal family in and out. But why is this show so popular, do you think?
It's so interesting, isn't it? Because look, I'm not a royalist at all. I've got no real feelings about. I'm not. I don't necessarily want to string them up either. But I have no strong feelings about them at all. And when I heard there was going to be a up to 10 season thing of the royal family, charting the royal family in the 20th century, I was like, that is such a terrible idea for a series. And how wrong could I possibly have been? And that, I have to say, that's just down to the genius that is the creator, Peter Morgan. He sees that they hold up a mirror to English society, and but much wider than that. And they tell us a lot about ourselves, why we need them, their role in society, what they stand for us, how we live through them. The whole Princess Diana phenomenon, for instance, and her death, the way the country reacted, the way the world reacted to that, tells us so much about ourselves, and that's shot right through the whole season of these little perceptive little ways that he can hold a mirror up to us. And it's funny as well, and that's what's really clever. It's funny, and it can be quite dark, or it can be quite funny, and then suddenly when you least expect it, it'll be very emotional, and that's what's really clever. And you know, he does that comes right down to the way we use music. You know, often when I least expect it, he's going, you know, no, don't be serious here. Don't be heavy here. You know, do something light. I'm much lighter here. And I'm going, oh, but this is a lovely moment. You know, let's make, no. Wait, save it. You know, save it to the end. And that's a really interesting, like you know, say just one last example, just the opening of this whole season of season 3. You know, we had the picture was very grand, and in the original cuts, and my music was very grand, and it was all like, yeah, we're the Crown, you know, this is great, aren't we fantastic? And in the end, he was like, no, this is totally wrong. We have to just be really minimal at this opening, like. And in the end, you just very simple sequence of shots of the band coming in, delivering the new stamp, and the shot of the Queen, and the music's very understated. Everything's very hushed, and it's just simple and expectant. And it's not like going, look at us, you know. It's just going, you know, we've got to earn your interest here. We've got to intrigue you and bring you on board. And really clever. Yeah,
and that shows also a real confidence that the show doesn't need to prove much, because we will love it once we get into it. It took me a little bit. Once I got into it, man, I really loved it. And Martin, your work in season 3 was amazing. I loved it as well. Thanks so much.
Great to be part of it. Yeah, and really nice to talk to you, Rob. That's lovely. Yeah.
Now, while you're here, everybody, go to goldderby.com, make your predictions right now, and click subscribe. We've got plenty of contender chats just like this one with Martin.